Well, Dr. Chris Lemmon, and this is part of my series that I've been doing this year. Each month, a little talk on teaching concepts. Uh, been a teacher most of my life, but I'm really talking about teaching concepts I had when I had a center. I put a center together and we started playing with ideas that would bring some type of balance into a person's life and introduce them to some type of potential. And that's what our goals were. So I've been talking about different phases of it, kind of on and on and on in different reviews. I'm going to move away from the general dialogue and let's just talk about teaching teachers, because once I started teaching beginning classes, I had 3 6-week classes, and then I had to start teaching teachers so that I had time to go ahead and put together programs. And then those teachers have finally evaluated what program they wanted to go into and then stepped up to those. And then I went on to more long-term programs, which we may get to talk about. So teaching teachers was, they already knew the material. The material is really simple. Most of what the teachers' classes were about were teaching them some little tidbits. Teaching concepts of awareness is different than teaching data. So we'll touch on that a little bit. And then I do have a degree. I've done some teaching. I've got some credentials for teaching. I went ahead and got them thinking I might teach and never got around to actually teaching in the educational system. Actually, all the structure intimidated me a little bit. I like doing things I don't like following. I don't like to have to do it someone else's way. I don't mind, I learn, but then if I have a different way of doing it, I like to be able to experiment. And a lot of times in job spaces, they don't like you experimenting. So anyway, to keep myself from getting out of trouble, staying out of trouble, I kind of avoid a lot of those scenarios in my professional career. Just like, yeah, like so many different things. I get into a job, I would change jobs, I've changed fields a lot of times, just like, yeah, whatever. It's been fun. It's fun learning. It's fun learning how to do it. And it's fun looking at it. And then you start to realize it's done a certain way to accommodate a selected group of people or a certain group of ideologies. And then you have to either figure, do you want to align with those ideologies or anyway. So all of you have had experience with that on life. You know what I'm talking about. And it's just like, I didn't want to be hampered by that. So I just kept making changes. And so anyway, I'm not trying to influence you with the ideology. I'm trying to say that I was trying to get rid of ideologies and put more choices into play, because I think that's the only way you're going to open up people to a potential, to be able to inspire them to try something they know absolutely nothing about, and to trust in that adventure of moving forward, and to understand that all of them won't work out. So you have to try a few of them to have them work out for you. I have done a lot of things in life that totally failed on me very quickly. And then I did it for a couple of months and said, okay, this is not working. I go by, and then I moved on to something else. The same with relationships and everything else. You guys had similar experiences, I know. So in teaching, what is the basic premise that we come into? When you're looking at a world that I look at as a parallax, that's my story for it. It's not new to me. It's like a lot of people have ideas similar to this. It's been around since the beginning of people thinking. Phenomena is one thing. Our logical world really dictates that everything in there, it meets the structure of the logical world. Although if it doesn't, it's not part of the logical world. It doesn't mean they're wrong. What they're saying is, and what they're trying to define everything as part of a structure that we can adhere to, we can prove it's scientific, it's consistent. Great. And that's logical world. That's one game. Not wrong. It's right, but it's a game. And then we have phenomena that just doesn't make any logical sense, just crazy stuff. It doesn't mean that that is right in the logical world. Matter of fact, it is not right in the logical world. Not right at all. But the world of potential sadly, seems to come more from what we imagine than what we know. So we have to integrate the two, which is technically an impossibility, because if you try to integrate something, then it gets a story that's logical and it diminishes the potential. They don't work together. It's so so it's really a challenge for a teacher to be able to bring them together. So we tell stories that introduce them to the idea of phenomena, and then we teach them to be able to perceive, because I think at best, if they can start to understand that the phenomena was not a logical piece, just a piece of information. If they take it in that terms, they don't get derailed into some stories about ghosts talking to them or their dead aunt telling them something or whatever, right? Because those are real, not real in logical world, but they're real experiences. The dance for a teacher is to be able to show phenomena, allow phenomena to be discussed, and yet make it really clear that this is never going to be a fact in a logical world, but it could very well be an introduction, a clue to some potential for you. Now, I just said it, and that's easy, but oh my gosh, teachers just like, they get this story and they want to make everybody think the same as them because of an experience they've had, like this is now the truth. No, it's the truth in our logical world is in this little silly packets over here. It's a logical structure. That's the divine truth. This is not a truth. I like to call it a potential. That's what I look at. It means you can play with this, and at some point you can integrate into something that's useful in this package, although it won't fit by itself. That is the heart of the teaching program. That's it. It needs to get a sense of balance to work in here, right? So when you talk about people that drink alcohol in excess, pretty soon it affects their relationship, it affects their health, it affects their jobs. But people that have a drink occasionally, barbecue on a Saturday in the backyard, and they have a couple of beers, I'm sorry, they manage to integrate the potential for destroying their life in a very secure way by being able to bring it in and say, I tell everybody I got one drink rule. I just have a drink and I quit. I go somewhere, I go out to dinner, I might have a drink and that's it. I don't drink any more than that. And so you see how I built a platform between that, right? Does having a drink relax you and get you a little more social? There's lots of evidence for that. Having too much drinks does destroy your life, get you in jail, get you drunk, get you sick. There's lots of evidence for that. This is what the logical world, it's a conundrum because it conflicts with itself. But we're not interested in fixing the logical world. We're stuck in this thing because we're born into it. We're trying to be able to take some potential that's not in there yet and integrate that in so that you can, in your lifetime, express some potentials or some streams of potential into it. That is the heart of what the whole program was about. So to contain them and hold them down in it so that they don't, that they have to tell stories because they're interesting. So let's talk about a phenomenal story. To make it interesting, I'll give you a good one. I did a lot of firewalks. Hey, there's a firewalk. Give you a really short piece. I was with a group of people. We were doing firewalks. We were doing firewalks at a fairgrounds. 150 people coming into a firewalks. We do firewalks. Sometimes we had 2-3 fires going to have so much surface area for people to walk on. Is it hot? Can it damage your body? Oh yeah, without a doubt. Logical world, you're in big trouble. Even at a firewalk where the fire department was parked there in a fire truck watching us walk on the fire and sitting there going, how can people do this? Because they're firemen, they work with fire, they got burnt, they know that's dangerous. And they're looking at saying, how can they, why are they doing this? How can they do this? I had a guy at a firewalk one time. I never had, when I was involved with them, never had anybody really get hurt. I had a guy that burned the side of his foot. He was walking on coals, right? Without a doubt, they're coals. And and he's backing away. He walked on it and he's standing there. And we would rake the coals every now and then to smooth them down because they kind of prick your feet. They're hard. And the red spots are soft. That's the ones that are really hot. So when you walk through it, you'll learn to step on the red spots and stay away from the really dark spots, because those dark spots have dried out pieces of embers and wood, and it's kind of like walking on popcorn. And it gets your feet all dirty too. And so he's over there and he's backing up, not paying attention, watching other people walk. And he brushes the side of his foot against that rake that we used. We just got done raking it and laid it flat with the sharp ones down into the ground so nobody would step on the sharp pieces. It's dark out there, right? And so he got the edge of his foot against that and it burned his foot. And he actually left a blister and actually went in to see a doctor to have the blister treated because it got a little infected, because the rake was a little dirty from the coals, right? All this makes sense, but he's walking on his coals and doesn't have any burns on the bottom of his feet. That's the world of phenomena. But don't try to integrate that into logic. It's just not going to work, right? We did an advanced walk. So we built tree fires and we built them in stages so that we could keep putting coals on, so we could stay on the fire instead of just for the time it burns out, like maybe an hour most. We could then be on it for 2 or 3 hours by hauling coals and dumping them on top. So it just keeps burning. Literally have almost 2 cords of wood, right? Burning, right? And so we had started this whole thing. We were filling in time. Normally you get the people away from the fire scene and talk to them and get talking to them about energy and potential and blah, blah, blah. On this particular one, because of advanced walk, we were all hanging around the fire. We were dancing around. We were doing dances. We were doing stuff. We were just having fun. And then the fires got down to we were walking on it. So we're all standing around. The fires are getting down, and we're waiting. We're all standing there waiting because it's like somebody walks and breaks the ice, and then everybody starts walking, right? And I'm standing there looking at this, thinking I'm all psyched up. I'm ready to walk. I'm looking around, and it's like, do I want to be the first one to go out there, or do I not? You know. And this little toddler in diapers, a little girl in diapers, little, comes over and grabs my hand and pulls me and walks me out on the coals. So I'm standing on the center of the coals with this little kid in diapers, nothing else on but diapers. And she sits her butt down on the coals. So what am I going to do? I sit down on the coals. I mean, I didn't want to sit on the coals because you get filthy dirty. They're cold. They're dirty. But I sat down with her. And she takes her hand and she puts her hand into the debris at the bottom. That's kind of red embers. And she gets it in her hand and blows on it. And a flame comes up in her hand and she giggles and she holds it up to me like that and then brushes it out of her hand. So I grab some, get it up, blow on it, and flames are coming up in my hand. I'm thinking, wow, this is a trip. And I just kind of brush it off. And she shrugs her shoulder and stands up, and I get up and we walk off the coals. And that was the start of the event. But that doesn't work in the logical world. It does not work. We found that out later. This was back in the 60s and 70s. Then later on, we got more popular with partying, you know, so we would do tailgate parties. So all of a sudden, they had people that would go to a fire walk a little early, do a tailgate party, be eating crap junk food, drinking booze, smoking dope, eating mushrooms, all this kind of stuff to enhance the experience of a fire walk. And all they did was wind up in a hospital. It's just like, you have to be attentive and make a conscious decision, or otherwise you cannot make that transition from a phenomena into the logical world. That's rule number one. Can it be fixed? this, I, I can't even make this stuff up. I am doing a talk at a kind of a new age church. I got maybe 12 people, and I had booked this talk, which those people paid for to listen to me talk for an hour. And I had booked this into one of their study rooms, and they had overbooked. So here I show up for the talk. And he said, well, you're going to have to use the office. We'll just push the tables back in because we overbooked. And I go, okay, whatever. I'm, not a big deal. So I'm sitting in there and the phone rings. And so there's somebody there at my talk who also was tending to the phone. They have this hotline where you can call for prayers, right? So she grabs the phone real quick and kind of steps out the door with the phone and the phone line. It's like wire phone. And she steps outside the door talking. And then she come back in and she said, Chris, I think this is for you. I'm thinking, can't be for me, and nobody knows I'm here, but like, okay. So I get the phone and I'm listening to the guy. I'm listening to a girl, and a girl said her boyfriend did a firewalk and he's in a hospital, and they're talking about cutting his feet off because the damage is so bad, it's unbelievable. I go, okay, so let me talk to him. Okay. So I get him on the phone. He's a little delirious and not very happy. And I said, what were you doing? I've been a lot of firewalks and never got burnt. What were you doing? Well, we had a little party and we did a little pot and we drank some whiskey, and then the guy showed up and we built the fire and we did the firewalk, and it just hurts, and it's like, and they don't think they can repair it and blah blah blah. And it says, stop. Okay, your girlfriend called a church organization that does prayer healings. They're going to do prayer healings for you. I'm going to support this process. So we're going to work with you. Now, listen to me very clearly. You need to just able to trust in us. Let us do our thing. Get out of it with your fear. Relax. Tomorrow in the morning, get my phone number from your girlfriend. This number right here, or no, better yet, I'll give you my home number. I don't have to come down here. I'm going to give you a number. I'm going to give it to your girlfriend. She's going to write it down. So I'm sure you don't have a way to write it down right now. And I want you to call that number in the morning and we'll go from there. Okay. So put off the surgeons till tomorrow. That's it. He said, oh, okay. So exactly what we did. The next morning, of course, he didn't call. What can I say? Not unusual. But I did get the number from the girl of her. So I called her number. And she said that she went to the hospital in the morning to see him, and he had checked out. They didn't do surgery. They didn't do anything. So I guess the doctors the night before thought maybe it was worse. She talked to a doctor that day, and he said, well, once we cleaned the wounds and everything, it looked like it was going to be okay. And he went home. And that was the doctor that came in that morning. He slept all night. So I don't know what happened. You get this? It's like in the logical world, we could say, oh, they misdiagnosed it the night before. They wanted to do surgery immediately. He didn't want them to do it, so they let it go. And the next day, you had a different opinion, or it changed, or their prayer healing worked, or you can't say anything logically. It's just, but you have to entertain these stories. Come on, you guys out there. There are books out there. There are stories out there. Most of those people are nutcases. Most of them can be explained away, but not all of them. Right. And we've seen all kinds of, I have seen all kinds of phenomena. I seek this junk out all my life, and it seems to seek me out. I've run into all kinds of things from about age 5 forward, and I can tell stories forever and a day. I got a whole repertoire of stories. And I learned when I was 6, I wrote down in my little childhood tablet, with the little lines, for kids and trying to do your letters. I was in 1st grade, and I wrote down, everything is aglow, everything is united. That's what I wrote. And then united became my catchphrase or my mantra. And this is at age 6. United. My name then was Ted, T-E-D. Long story why, but nonetheless, that was my name then. And nobody wanted me to have that name. And it was kind of a joke. And so I eventually departed from that. But the thing was, Ted, was U-N-I, Ted was my mantra. U-N-I, T-E-D, united. So that was my piece that I played with. Anytime I saw something that was weird, I would say united. U-N-I-T-E-D, U-N-I-T-E-D, U-N-I-T-E-D. And I could remember it. I would be with relatives and we'd be playing and see something really strange come out of the woods. And we'd all see it and we'd all say something, what is that? And the next day when I'd see them, they wouldn't have any idea. They don't even remember it happened. It's totally gone from their mind. I saw a woodchuck. I didn't know what a woodchuck was. We were just little kids, 5 years old. We saw a woodchuck in the woods. I don't know what that was. So the next day I said, I'm going to go talk to some adult and find out what that critter was that we saw. And they go, what did it look like? You guys tell me what you saw. They didn't remember seeing it. So I went to someone and said, Ranger Bob, and said, hey, this thing that looked like this, what is that? He said, well, that's a pretty close description to a woodchuck. They're in this area and you probably saw a woodchuck. I said, oh, okay. Hey, what can I say? Because I put that little mantra on it. That was my first learning that I could at least take some of the data from phenomena and have an opportunity to translate it somewhere to be able to be in this world of form, or if not in this world of form, to be able to let it go and say, just a misread. My brain playing tricks on me because it's done that a couple of times too, right? So it's like, wow. I have been around people that got a phenomenon and they got ghosts and it's just like I walk in and we just change that whole state. And I got paid to take a ghost away one time, and then the guy's business fell off, and then he paid me again to bring it back. It's like, do I believe in ghosts? I don't know if I believe in any of this, to tell you the truth. It's not a question of belief system. Logical world is what I believe in, because this is all pretty much logical world here, right? But that potential's there too. And I got real money for doing both jobs. Like, what is that? Because it had an influence in the world. Do I think potential can have influence? Yeah, I think so. All of us know that if you come down with if you have a drinking problem and you go to AA, that whole group dynamic and the 12 steps influences you. They have a good success rate. If you got cancer and you get in a clinic with people that got cancer and you do this talk therapy type piece, it has an influence. Most certainly it has an influence, and it affects your healing tremendously. And lots of evidence for all of that too, right? Do you understand? So when a teacher comes in, the hard part is to get the teachers to keep that in mind so that they don't just go in and tell stories about phenomena and tell people that, oh my God, yes, you can do all these amazing things. No. That's not quite the way it works, right? You really have to be able to bring those two together. You have to bring a little of those expressions into that dynamic of being united as a potential to unfold. It just this doesn't translate automatically, guaranteed. And we've all seen books and stories about people who have got great ideas. And I've seen healers that, laying on hands and heal people and pray for people. And they have all these numbers, but there's also even a longer list of numbers of people that didn't quite make it. I've done a lot of influences I would call it an influence to try to get people to entertain the idea of getting better. And some of them played into that and got better, and some of them just died. You know, it's like, hey, it's not about power. It's not about control. Boy, that is just what we really love to do. We humans love to think that we can power our way through something or control something. I'm telling you, at best, you can influence something. That's at best. And potential means you're influencing yourself doing something else that you could do that you didn't know you could do before. That's the whole goal of all the programs. Okay, now a little bit of the shenanigans that kind of go on with the teacher's program. What I've learned in lessons in a teaching moment, in a teaching time segment, 2 hours, 3 hours. If it's a seminar and we're doing an all-day event, it might be 2 hours, and then we take a break, and then we might have a couple hours, and we go a break for lunch, and we might have a couple hours. So there might be several segments. But in a segment of time, you really have two concepts that you can introduce to people that can effectively register in their memory, because we don't manage our consciousness barely at all, and we barely pay attention. So when you walk in and everybody's coming in and they're sitting down and they're still on the road driving there, they're still thinking about life. It's going to take 15, 20 minutes to get them calmed down. So it's a time you tell a few stories, you go around, you say, how was your week? You do whatever you do, it don't matter, because right now it's all dead space. You're filling in dead space. And all of a sudden you'll get into what some organizations call a match. Kind of like, it feels like there's a hum, there's a harmonic. It feels like everybody is all of a sudden saying, okay, now we're ready. So then you get a feel for that. And then you start to teach them a concept, some type of silly concept, right? It's like, okay, you want to imagine that you're grounded to the planet, right? And so there you are, you're connected. Kind of feel that tug when you're sitting there, right? Get that connection to the planet. Because what we know is that you can walk into a room and there might be a sound going on, and you hear a little hum or noise or something, you quite, but you go over and there's a drum there, and you put your hand gently on that drum skin, you'll feel the vibration in the drum skin. There's a sound, there's a harmonic. Maybe it's just the air conditioning system, but I have been in buildings where I say, what is that? And I put my hand on the wall and I can feel the vibration in the wall. So I know it's some appliance, air conditioning unit on a roof, 2-ton air conditioner roof is going and it's producing a vibration and a harmonic I can hear. So those are just opening up awareness to pay better attention. That's all that's out. It's not magic. It's just, you want to be able to have this be a better resource. So once you connect up to something, you then start to feel the movement in it. Makes sense, right? It's like you get on an airplane, you can feel the movement. It jumps up and down quickly. I've had ready where with seatbelt on, I bumped my head on that ceiling because I'm tall, and it's like bang, it's like ow, because we've dropped so far. Those are real feelings, right? And those are real experiences. So we just need to get some sensory to it. And if you're sitting with the illusion that none of this movement happens, you're deceiving yourself. But that's what we're really good at. We produce what's called a scheme in psychology, schema. And I think that Jung coined that term, but nonetheless, we have this idea. Piaget used to talk about accommodations and assimilation. And it just means that if we get into a situation that is somewhat familiar to something we did before, we'll do one of two things. We'll either update our database inside us, or we'll deceive ourselves to think that it's the same. Over 90% of the time, we deceive ourselves to think it's the same. That's all total scientific proof for all that. So it's like, wow, I'm just advocating that you become part of that percentage that don't deceive what's going on, that updates your database so that you're now approaching a potential, something you didn't know is now becoming known. That's it. I don't know any other way to get into it, is to be able to take that leap and take that step and say, Come on, it's a small step, but we have to move in that direction. And that's what we're trying to teach. So you got a teaching moment in the very beginning, they're settled down and you teach them a concept and you exercise with it. You do things that they feel that. I get people stand up and they're standing there and you have their partner gently push them. So they feel that push. I said, now ground your body and make that connection. And somebody pushes you and you feel the difference in resistance. They barely move. Like, wow, that's kind of interesting. So we're integrating a phenomena. I don't know. I could get a bunch of scientists. They could probably come up with some crazy word or some term to define all that. I look at my psychology books and I see crazy fallacies, concepts, ideas that are really bizarre, and they just got a term on them. So now all of a sudden they're acceptable, right? And if it turns up in the psychology Bible, the DSM, then we can work on it or not, right? It's all structured. So when you start to look at that, they then by the end of class or 3/4 of the way through class, you have introduced an idea to them and you have affirmed that idea has some influence on you. It's not gospel, it's just some influence on you. It affects you in some way, shape, or form. So now it seems like the teacher is somewhat valid and you're having an experience that's somewhat valid. And now you're thinking, okay, fine, that took 2 hours, for Christ's sakes, let's get out of here. It's like time to go home. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm whatever that they're going through. And when you start to feel that disconnect start to come in, where they're like, okay, I got this. I got this. I'm done. That's when you hit them with the second piece, because you're not going to spend 2 hours validating that. You're going to say, here's something else I want you to consider and go play with this. And we'll talk about it next week. We had this. So you locked them in on, here's an idea. You could feel it. And now you're giving them something else to go feel and a whole week in life to feel it. Next week, they're going to come back. Where is their attention going to be on? Do you see, as a teacher, you just made them go out in the world and attend to a concept you introduced them to. It's like, how many blue cars do you see in a day? Well, if you start counting them, you're going to see a lot of them, right? But if you're not counting them, they're just, that's it, right? So it's a simple teaching technique. Call it a trick if you want to. Call it whatever you want to. What it basically does, it has them pay more attention. And then whatever you showed them next week when they come in and they're stirring around trying to get there, you have them share their experience and they say, yeah, what you said really worked. It was amazing. Everything you said was correct. So now you're back into class 2 and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to introduce them to something, spend an hour and a half validating that it has an influence. It's not the truth. It has an influence. And then as they go through that influence, then you give them another piece at the end to go out and prove in the world. And so in 6 weeks, we've got 2 a week, but the last week we end with a party. So we're basically going through not 12 concepts, but 11 concepts that we can kind of play with. The last week we kind of end with a little celebration, closure. I tell everybody, I don't put out phone lists. Obviously, we're an organization, we can't do that. If you made friends here and you want to carry on with this and talk to some of your friends, you guys need a moment to go ahead and change phone numbers. That's fine. If you don't want to ever talk to anybody in here, then don't change phone numbers. That's all up to you, right? So this is just establishing a sense of community. We experience this together. If you get a class, I would have classes sometimes with 70 students and I'd have classes with 1. And do I do a class with 1? Absolutely, I do a class with 1. Because that person that had to be the only person in there, only 1 or 2 in there, was well defended. Not a bad person. This is not a bad thing. They just have a strong defense system. they want to entertain something without a lot of influence, right? Some people love sitting around listening to music all the time. I don't have on my computer. I actually keep the volume turned off. So if I get a YouTube link, I click on, I'm gonna listen to it. I got I got to remember to turn my volume on because I'm working on a computer at home, writing papers, doing documents, doing whatever I'm doing with the sound off. Totally in my facility here, quiet. But in the very beginning, I started out when I was 20 doing Buddhist meditations in silence and 1 week retreats. So it's, let's call it my handicap for learning to do meditations. I am sitting there and it's just total silence. And I don't like meditations that run more than 20 minutes, although I've done week-long meditations and I've done lots of 3-hour meditations. But I like to have a question, relax about 20 minutes and get clues to pursue the answer. That's what I like to do. And a few other markers that I teach the teachers to share, right? As we start to move into this potential for them. I've got other people that love to have headsets on and listen to, I don't know, Led Zeppelin while they're meditating or whatever. It's like, it's okay. If it works for them, that's fine. Will all that noise affect you in some way, shape, or form? Well, with me, I don't know what it does for them. Would it narrow your range down? Potentially it could, but once again, it's like, who could explain phenomena, right? It's like, wow, I have been in riots already where I see people running over the place and doing all these kind of things. And it's kind of like, I just pretty much kind of stay calm and look around and decide, where I need to stand to stay out of everybody's way and just like let them do whatever they're doing. And it's like, yeah, I've been to lots of riots, cars burning, guns going off. Like, what are you going to do? Run somewhere and do what? I mean, it's like, okay, well, whatever. I'm just going to relax and stand here and watch this craziness going on. And that's pretty much a phenomena too. You get this. It's not logical. It's not like, what are they doing? It's like over some issue, they're just all getting extreme and they're all acting out. It's like, wow, couldn't they pay a little attention, get quiet, think about it, come up with some discernment, look at both sides, get rational, critical and thinking? Couldn't they do that? Well, they could, or they can't, right? So the schemas that we have sometimes are very reactionary. Matter of fact, if we just react to something, we get offended, we react in any way, shape, or form, it's pretty much an automatic program kicking in from my experience, right? And pretty much when you read any books on psychology, they pretty much say very similar idea that it's a reaction. If you get something that's offensive and you give yourself a little buffer of time, you look at that and you said, oh, okay, that's, I took a couple of people and we were on a trip and I said, hey, let's go over to that winery and get some snacks. We're out walking and I noticed, I like to walk, and I noticed that they were starting to drag their heels. So I'm looking around and think, okay, sometimes people that don't have an idea of walking for 5 hours, they run out of steam in 15 minutes and they go, I can't walk anymore. And then it kind of ruins the whole event. If you drag them along, it ruins the whole event. There's not much you can do. So here I'm out walking. So we go to this little winery. We walk over to this little winery and we get some snacks, right? And we have some snacks and we have a glass of wine or a beer or something, which is basically just sugar and alcohol. Numbs that fatigue down enough, one. And a little snack, we got a little protein, maybe some cheese and crackers or whatever. And then we kind of talk a little bit and then we get up and we go on our walk and everybody's buzzing again. And we managed to make, maybe an hour and a half more before they start dragging again. They actually got more stretch out of the break then they got out of, because their attentions shifted, and all of a sudden they felt that uplift. So they, I'm doing better. So now they're stronger. They changed their mindset. You get this? This is really easy stuff. This is not new ideas. This has been out there for a long time. So when I put together, I said, come on, this is just research, and we're playing with research to be able to look at phenomena and be able to be inspired by these influences to be able to reach our potential. And that's the heart of it. So the rules are really simple. Keep it really simple in a class. Don't make demands of anybody, and don't critique anybody's experience, and don't let anybody in the room critique someone else's experience. I have had people throw cups at people and scream and holler, and because all of a sudden they had a different experience than someone else, and they immediately took offense as if someone was saying they were wrong. And I'd say, do you feel this energy over here? And they go, oh, yeah. And other people, I can remember having a guy in a class one time, and a very sweet guy, a very sensitive guy, and he had talked about his brother twin had died. And I said, well, entertain that experience for a second. Close your eyes, stand right there, entertain that experience. Just imagine. This is not real. We're just imagining it. Imagine that your brother is there. And just imagine, what was that like? And he brought tears to his eyes, and he said, oh my gosh, it's just, my brother came over and hugged me. It's like, is he a nutcase? Well, in the logical world, he's still a nutcase because there was no brother there. The brother's buried, he's not dead. But that experience with his brother and the relationship with his brother, and that consideration that we're connected in some way, shape, or form, opens up a world of potential for you. You could feel that connection. Is it important to feel that connection? I think so, because we get along much better as humans when we feel connected than when we feel dissonance, right? We have enough violence. We don't need more of it. So he had an experience, legitimate experience. I've had tons of people that have legitimate experiences. And then I'd have people that come in with stories about being abused as a child, or space aliens, or some silly like that. And it's like, I can't rekindle those experiences because you've got fear in them. So I have to go back and find, okay, that was really sad. You were 9 years old and you were captured by space aliens. When's your happy moment? Did you have a birthday party when you were 5 or 6? That was kind of cool. You can remember. Let's go back. Give me something to anchor into. And we're sitting there, and next thing you know, we've got her anchored into a positive experience that occurred when she was like 5 years old or 6 years old, a birthday party, her friends were there, blah, blah, blah. She's having a happy time. She's having a good time. And I said, okay, now we'll make this an anchor. So we give you, blah, 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 and we just kind of anchor this in. So when you have thoughts of the space aliens, remember, that was a bad day. This is a good day. Okay. So walk away with a good day. So one starts to, it's a setup to override, right? This is just normal stuff, right? So it's an override. So next thing I know, I see her a year later, and she says, oh, I don't have any more dreams of space aliens anymore. I must have worked that all out of my life, like we just set it up to make it an influence, be beneficial for her, right? Most of this actually that I just told you is actually in those psychology books. It's actually in that logical world. But, psychology is pretty much an intuitive science, which means that it plays with those schemas. It plays with those pieces of potential. And that's exactly what it does, which is why I went into the field and why I didn't work very much in the field, because there were so many constraints. My approach to it, when at the time when I went into it, would not have been acceptable. Today, yeah, you can get away with all this kind of crazy stuff I just told you. This is all standard today. But back in the 60s, this was all coming of age. It's all starting to change. And that's where I started in playing with all these ideas. So people come back and say, why'd you retire? It's kind of like the game I was playing is now over. So a new game afloat, right? Um, so will you guys that are out there and you're starting to learn some of the stuff, will you accelerate faster? Yes. It's a lot more open. It's less structured. It's less because we don't have the traditional, I'm not anti-religion, but we don't have the traditional religious background that it says it's got to be this way. The word is, it's very structured with rules. When we can bend the rules a little bit. Yes, when you look at the market, we've bent the rules so much that it's destructive. The rules have lost their merit for being rules as far as being able to provide legitimacy to situations. Marketing has got totally crazy. All these things have got really silly, and getting quality out of everything it's just amazing. And I know everybody has had these experiences, and it makes you wonder what's going on, right? And my wife had just bought 3 CDs that she had purchased online, and when she got the 3, they were actually, when she got the 3, the first 2 were mint, brand new, not marked at all. And the third one, the case was cracked and broken. The CD was all scratched up. It looked like it'd been thrown in the dirt and jumped on, literally. And she's looking at this thinking, oh yeah, it's not a problem. You send it back and they're going to replace it. But you see the time and the money and the energy that took, because somebody packaging those 3, what were they thinking? What were they, could they not see that? Could they not know that it's going to get sent back? Could they not know? Even when there's accountability, and they'll fire those people for doing things like this because they write them up several times. It's like, you look at this, I have people come to me and they go, I'm 25 years old and I can't hold down a job. And I say, well, why do they fire you? Well, they don't. I just quit going. It's just stupid. Oh, so the problem is not the employers. The problem has been you. Well, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, I'm a bit of a rebel. I understand that. I have quit jobs too. I got that, let's talk about that. But I was out of work never more than a week in my life. And now you've been out of work for 4 months and you're living off of someone else and you're getting aid where you can. And it's like, wow. So let's have a conversation about this. Let's see where this goes. Do you see this may affect some of you people out there listening to this? If I offended you, sorry, more or less. But at some point in time, there has to be a potential for you. There has to be something that inspires you. There has to have something that makes this whole game worth doing. Yes, our suicide rate is up. That's really very sad. But it's an inspiring piece that you can start to move forward on. You can be able to say, yeah, I got to try this. I got to try that. I get people encouragements, and then they go out and they say, well, I've filled out 5 applications online this week. I haven't heard from anybody. Wow. Okay. Well, I told you I've never been out of work, but I don't remember ever filling out an application. Not before I was hired. I've gone in, I got a job, and then they a couple of days later sent me an application and said, we need this for the file, fill this out so I can put it in the file, but I'm already working there. So am I special? I don't think so. Right. But I have a lot of tenacity. I got to be 8 o'clock in the morning. I started knocking on doors until 5 o'clock at night. I interviewed a lot of people. I went everywhere. I had a lot of people say, oh, we go through this procedure. And I said, okay, that's fine. But I don't really want to go through a procedure. I want to find a job. So if I fill all this paperwork out for an hour, I'm going to, by the end of this week, have a job. So this is a total waste of my time. So if you don't have an opening and you're not looking for someone, then why should I waste my time? And some of them said, oh, okay, go away. No, it's fine. I'll go away. And then after I hit 5 or 6 or 8 or 12 or 14 people, someone says, okay, I need someone with tenacity. Here's a job. And that's it. Then I'm working. That's just Is that a phenomenon? I don't know if that's a phenomenon or not. I don't know if my spirit guide told me to do this or whatever. It's just a question of like, no, I set a goal, I'm paying attention, I'm moving in that direction to accomplish it. Is it harder today? Well, I don't know. Everybody's telling me it's harder today, but there was a lot more, there was a lot of unemployment back in those days too. So it's like, I knew people that were unemployed. I knew people that were having problems. I had roommates that their parents were paying for their share of the rent because they couldn't find a job yet. But the rest of us were working. So I'm not trying to put a judgment. This is what's important. It's just that they don't have a system of being able to get a feeling of like, how's this working for me? What do I have to do to make it work? What do I have to go through? How many steps do I have to do? A lot of steps? Okay, then I'm going to have to do a lot of steps. Am I going to have to talk to 375 people this week to find a job? Okay, I'll talk to 375. Maybe I'll talk to 376. What the heck? That's the element of what we like to call attention. You have to pay a lot more attention. If I see 376 people this week and I don't find a job, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions to me. It's like, what do I have to do different? Where does it go different, right? And I've had people that hire people that have come into classes and they have all these criterions on hiring people. I had one lady who worked for a chain and she was running a HR department and hiring people. And she said she tells people to watch the teeth. If people have yellow teeth, that means they probably smoke. So you can't necessarily ask them if they smoke, but if they smoke, that means they're going to take smoke breaks. And so you're not going to get as much out of them. So she said, we don't hire people that smoke, but we don't tell anybody that we don't do that because then we could get sued. Like, I've seen all this kind of stuff in life, and you see all these little structures and rules and innuendos behind everything, and it's really kind of hard for us to all to get along because where's that integrity go? So, do I smoke? No, I don't smoke because it's not healthy. Is there lots of scientific data to prove it's not healthy? Well, yeah, most certainly. And on the other side, I think that I'm telling you with firewalks and stuff, if you're doing a lot of booze, drugs, and who knows what all, you're going to be a lot more challenged and a lot more at risk. And pretty much I see the same thing. I've done a lot of pilgrimage, and we go onto a pilgrimage. It's like we're all going somewhere on a trip and there's 20 of us and we're all waiting for the person who's gasping for air because they're a smoker. And then all of a sudden they run out of wind when we're up at Machu Picchu, climbing up the side of the hill, and they're all kind of like, it's like, what can I say? It's like the rest of us are going up there. So do we pause and wait for them? No, we don't pause for it. Hey, take it easy. Respect your body. Sit down and relax here. We're going to go up to the top. We'll pick you up on the way back down. That's a respectful thing to do. I can't judge them as being wrong. I'm judging the influence it has on them. Do you see the influence it has on them is where they really need to attend to so they can make a decision. Other than that, it's automatic. I had a lady whose doctor finally told her that she had to quit smoking. And so, because her parents died from emphysema, her whole family, her brother has it. It's like, so obviously it's in the genes, if you want to call it that way, well, whatever. But I was also living in a household with secondhand smoke. So it's like, so it's more than in the genes. It's big influence, right? So she quit smoking. She came in, she took classes, she managed to get it together. She quit smoking. It was about 4 years later, I just bumped into her and just happened to see her on the street. And we went and had coffee and we talked. And she said, and I said, how are you doing with the smoking? Been quite a while. And she said, I'm still a non-smoker. She said, I'm so glad because the family story, blah, 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 blah. That was the anchor, right? But she said, it's so weird. I'm working in a new job now. And all of a sudden, all these desks were in cubicles, and all of a sudden, 3 or 4 people get up to go out and smoke. And this guy walks by and he looks at me and he says, we're going to go smoke. And I get up and looking in the drawer for my cigarettes, and I can't find them, but I got a pack of matches. So I got the matches in my hand. I'm walking out onto the patio with these people, and I'm ready to say, hey, can I bum a cigarette? I can't find mine. And all of a sudden I remember I don't smoke. I'm standing there dumbfounded. And I just like, I didn't know what to do. So I said, anybody need matches? And somebody took them from me. And I turned around and went back inside and sat down at my desk. It's like, it's been 4 years since I smoked a cigarette. And I just got caught up in, and that was still somewhere in there. You don't lose these elements. You just simply manage them. You simply build a change in there. And she was just somewhere digging into paperwork and totally, I lost the idea of who she was. Range narrows down. You've only got 7 plus or minus, and probably whatever she was working on her computer monitor was probably taking all those 7 bits up. And so when someone said smoke, she goes, oh yeah, right? The trance is still somewhere in there. It's bizarre to feel. So the idea for teachers was the idea to take the simple pieces, watch everybody in front of you, watch the students, watch how they're reacting, get a sense of how they're reacting, guide them along so that we can get to a place to where they can notice there's influences from everything. They need to make decisions. They need to make decisions on influences. You don't make decisions for them. You tell them phenomenal stories and tell them this is a rare phenomenal occasion. It's not normal. But just so you know, potential is there. It can happen. And so if you want it to happen in your life, you got to start paying attention. You start to notice the situations. You know, how many times you're walking down the street and somebody reaches across and picks up money and you go, wow, I was closer to it than they were. I just didn't notice it. Okay. Just happened the other day for me. And I'm walking along and I see a piece of paper on the ground. It caught my attention. I saw it. There was a lot of litter. The streets were walking. And I see it and I look at it and it caught my attention. I'm thinking, what is that? And it was something on it. And I turned back to look at it. And my wife, which was on my right side, she stepped in front of me and reached down, picked it up. It was a $5 bill, all wrinkled up. Probably came out of the window of somebody's car going down the road. And so I got $5. Am I lucky? Maybe, whatever. But nonetheless, there it was on the ground. I most certainly, if she not have reached to pick it up, I was already looking back down to say, what is that? That caught my attention. I was walking, looking at traffic, looking at scenes, and it still caught my attention. That's what we call a bigger range for attention. Yeah, and it caught hers. She's got a bigger range for attention. So if your attention is not that big, you start to miss those things. So the idea is to be able to have people share with you stories, open up those ranges of attention, define some of those things, and ask them questions. Would you think of it this way? Would you think of it that way? So, and there's a lot of things that you can play. You can talk on the energy movement, or you can talk in the spaces between the energy movement. It makes a tonal quality as you start to talk. So you can play a little bit with tonal qualities. So if you talk right on something, it sounds more factual and it sounds like you're trying to push on them a little bit. But if you tone that down a little bit and talk in the space between, you're not so pushy to it. So those are little exercises we would play with in the teacher's class so that the people wouldn't be trying to shove an idea down someone's throat. That was my criterion for teaching. I had a good batch of teachers. They were really good. They all had their dilemmas in life. I could tell stories about those, but none of that really matters. They did a really good job in teaching. And I had people that wanted to be a teacher. And I had this one woman that walked in the first day and she had this stack like this high. She had spent all night doing research on a topic that I was going to talk about. And it's like, what are you doing? She said, well, I can use these in teaching the class. These 375 pieces of paper, I could use as handouts to, oh my goodness. Like, yeah, she never made it as a teacher. Sad to say, but But guess what? She was a teacher professionally, and a very bright woman. Well, certainly very bright, but couldn't integrate the idea of potential. She couldn't get this, as she wanted to keep everything in this logical world and really not bridge the gap between the two. All right. So I think I talked enough. I want to keep this. I always say I want to keep it short, and then I run on and on with stories. I think we've covered enough. I have had several people ask me for curriculum. I've sent them curriculum. I sent kind of one piece and then another piece to see if they have any questions back on it. When you look at a 6-week class, it's pretty much like maybe 2-3 pages of paper for the first class. It's not really very much. Most everything that we do in between is exercises and stories. I pretty much work with the teachers so they have unique exercises and unique stories for them. It drives me nuts when I go into an organization and they say, oh, our master said, oh, our master tells us this, our master said that. I don't want to be a master at anything. So it's kind of like, so, hey, come on, tell me a story in your life that was relevant to this. And they share stories and I can inspire that. And when they teach, pretty much they show up and they're telling their stories, they're telling their experiences, they're sharing experiences, they're going back and forth. And it makes it a more open dialogue. And you need to have that format of an open dialogue and feels somewhat safe. Not always easy because there's threatening people. I have had people ready to say, hey, you need to sit right next to the door. And right now, the rules are really simple. Anytime you all of a sudden feel tension in your body, you need to get up, go out the door, walk around outside in the parking lot, come back. You won't miss anything. I've never said anything important in my life. So you won't miss anything. But otherwise, you get tense and then you get argumentative. So go out and come back in. If there's something you missed, you can talk to one of the other students. If there's something you missed, I will personally meet up with you and review it with you. No charge. That's what I'll do. But you need to be by the door. And so you need to set these up so that, and you get a mother and a daughter, you really don't want them sitting next to each other. You want them separated a little bit. All those little things you start to see in there that you can kind of play with and keep it on an even keel. Come on, you're learning to feel influence in your body. So if you're a teacher, you've got to notice that the students are an influence on you, and you've got to be able to establish a neutrality so that there's an experience of learning rather than an opportunity to argue a viewpoint. All right. So once again, I said enough. It's so if you wizardscatch.com is my website. So Chris with 2 S's at Wizardscatch, WIZARDSCACHE, and I use Wizardscatch channel for the YouTube. So it's somewhat congruent, I guess. And so it makes it somewhat easy. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to email me. I'd be glad to entertain your questions. Sometimes I do videos on the questions. Sometimes I just do an email. Sometimes I make a phone call. So depends what it makes. So, I'm old. I'm not going anywhere. I'm probably not going to open any more centers at 80. So, if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, I would love to do that. If you want to argue about something, I'm up for that too. What the heck? I'm always open for new ideas. I'm always open for opportunities to learn and to find new potential. So thank you very much.